Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This morning is Rabbi Alisa Zilberstein's first Shabbat with us here at Beth Tikvah. It's also her first Shabbat in Canada, so it's a lot of newness. And I said that maybe this Shabbat she should rest. She just got here late on Tuesday night, and that over the coming weeks you'll have a chance to hear her speak more. But this morning I think she's just watching carefully the service and trying to learn. You're in very, very good hands. This is my last Shabbat before I go on holiday for the summer. And it was a big effort to get Rabbi Zilbershtein here. Rabbis don't advertise in the classified sections. Actually, there's a couple who do. But not good rabbis don't advertise in the classified sections. And there are some people here today who were really instrumental in helping to navigate this process, which happened in a very short amount of time and involved unusual immigration challenges. Thank you to everybody who worked hard to make it possible for Rabbi Zilberstein to be here. And I hope today and throughout the summer you'll show her the warmth and spirit of Hachnasat Orchim, of welcoming new people, that I know is an important part of the identity of our community. So at Kiddush you'll have a chance to go up to her and introduce yourselves, and more throughout the coming weeks. And maybe you'll say a few words now. You want to speak?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Wow, good morning. Shabbat Shalom, dear Beth Tikvah congregation. And thank you so much for the warmest and kindest welcome really in my life. I'm so happy to be here in this lovely community, which is really already my family. I feel so welcomed. And it's such a happy day for me and for my husband Victor, who we also meet. Because yes, this is our first Shabbat in this wonderful home and in this wonderful country. Thank you so much, and thank you for coming today, because now we can meet in person and I'll talk to you at the Kiddush. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
So my brother-in-law is staying with me this weekend. He's here with his daughter in the back. His kitchen is being renovated in Thornhill, so he asked if he could stay at my house for the summer. And he is obsessed with Seinfeld. Obsessed with Seinfeld. It's unbelievable how even this past week, I know that he's watching it on TV every night. When I've seen him, the TV is on and he's watching Seinfeld, episodes that he's probably seen hundreds and hundreds of times. He's still watching them and still finds it funny. So in his honor, I want to speak today about a topic that I think is actually incredibly well illustrated in one of those Seinfeld episodes. The episode was called The Sponge, and it aired in 1995. In the episode, Kramer, the character Kramer, decides to participate in an AIDS walk to support charity. But things take a turn when he declines to wear the AIDS ribbon. Here's the dialogue. Volunteer. You're checked in. Here's your AIDS ribbon. No thanks, says Kramer. You don't want to wear an AIDS ribbon? No. But you have to wear an AIDS ribbon. I have to? Yes, says the volunteer. Yeah, see, that's why I don't want to, Kramer says. But everyone wears the ribbon. You must wear the ribbon. Kramer says, you know what you are? You're a bully, and walks away. Hey, you come back here. Come back here and put this on. The peer pressure Kramer receives is funny because it's strange, but it's also relatable. You don't have to be a hard-nosed libertarian to see that there is a human tendency to fanatically push conformity, even in matters of symbolism, perhaps actually especially in matters of symbolism. The story doesn't end there, however. The writers explore just how intense the impulse to make others conform can be as Kramer begins his charity walk in a scene that is simultaneously dark and hilarious. Walker number 1 turns to Kramer and says, "Hey, where's your ribbon?" "I don't wear one," Kramer said. "You don't wear the ribbon? Are you against AIDS?" "Yeah, I'm against AIDS," says Kramer. "I'm walking, aren't I? I just don't wear the ribbon." "Who do you think you are?" says the walker. "Put the ribbon on." "Hey, Cedric, Bob, this guy won't wear a ribbon." Who will not wear the ribbon?" The scene is a great example of mob mentality. Kramer, who is walking in support of AIDS awareness, is browbeaten by his peers despite his support for the cause. The ribbon bullies don't care that Kramer is walking in support of the same cause they are. All they can see is he's not wearing the ribbon. The scene ends with the ribbon wearers, the ribbon-wearing walkers, beating Kramer up in an alley. Watching Kramer get beaten up in an alley for not wearing a ribbon is funny because it's Seinfeld, but the writers of the show are also revealing a dark side of human nature that is very real. Wanting to do good through a charity walk is a noble human instinct. But the instinct ceases to be noble and good when we begin to use aggression and coercion to make others do what we think is right. The writers of Seinfeld saw how the line between the two could easily be blurred, and how the instinct to do good can also breed a kind of fanaticism that is anything but funny. For nonconformity, the world whips you with its displeasure, wrote Emerson. We often forget that Judaism's beginning is a story of non-conformity. God turns to Abraham and says, Leave your land, leave your birthplace, leave your father's house, go somewhere else where I will show you. I want you," God says to Abraham, "to be different. Not for the sake of being different, but for the sake of starting something new. A religion that will not worship power or the symbols of power, for that is what idols really were and are. I want you," said God, "to teach your children and your household afterward to follow the way of the Lord by doing what is right and what is just." To be a Jew is to be willing to challenge the prevailing consensus when, as so often happens, nations and societies slip into worshiping the idols of their age. They did so in Europe throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. That was the age of nationalism, the pursuit of power in the name of the nation-state that led to 2 world wars and tens of millions of deaths. And they do so too today in the age of political correctness, an age where the world is divided between powerful and powerless, aggressors and victims, and where all these hierarchies of power must be destroyed. The main lines of separation, you know what they are in today's political correctness wars: race, sex, gender identity. And if you don't stand with the victims by wearing your ribbon, flying your flag, saying the right things, you are subject to cancellation. We make a mistake when we think of idols in terms of their physical appearance, when we think of them as statues, figurines, or icons. In that sense, they are relics from another time, irrelevant symbols to us modern people today. Instead, the right way to think of idols is in terms of what they represent. They symbolize power. That is what Ra was for the Egyptians, Baal was for the Canaanites, Chemosh for the Moabites, Zeus for the Greeks, missiles and bombs for terrorists and rogue states today. Symbols of power. A ribbon can be a symbol of power. So can a flag. Even a mask can be a symbol of power. Power allows us to rule over others without their consent. One could summarize Judaism, taught Rabbi Sachs of blessed memory, as simply, quote, a sustained critique of power. That's all Judaism is. It is about how a nation can be formed on the basis of shared commitment and collective responsibility. It is about how to construct a society that honors the human person as the image and likeness of God, a vision of a world based on justice, based on compassion. Abraham models this behavior in the way he lives. The Torah measures everything he does on the scale of justice and compassion. In this week's Parsha, when the water supply suddenly goes dry, Rashi, the Torah commentator, blames Abraham, which is very strange since Abraham is nowhere near this story. He's long gone. But back in the book of Genesis in Parashat Vayera, 3 visiting angels come to Abraham's tent. Abraham personally gets them food to eat. But if you look closely at the scene that plays out in that parsha, he does not personally get them water to drink. He asks his servants to do so. Hashem remembered, taught Rashi, and in the wilderness, Abraham's lack of compassion came back to haunt his descendants. This is the tremendous sensitivity demanded of God by Abraham, and the scale on which Abraham's descendants are measured years and years later. Abraham did not rule any empire. He was not the commander of any great army. He performed no miracles, proclaimed no prophecy, and yet, as the spiritual ancestor to billions of people in the world today, he is probably the most influential person who ever lived. There is no greater example in history of a person achieving influence without power. influence without power. He did not get there by following the crowd. Just the opposite. He did it by being unafraid of non-conformity. Why was he called Ha'ivri, the Hebrew, asks the Midrash. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kol ha'olam kulo me'ever achad, v'hu me'ever achad. Taught Rabbi Judah, all the world was on one side, but Abraham was me'ever, on the other side. That's why he is called Ivri, the Hebrew. We Hebrews must also be unafraid of non-conformity. One reason why Jews have become, out of all proportion to our numbers, leaders in almost every sphere of human endeavor is precisely because of our tradition not to be afraid to be different. Throughout the centuries, Jews have been the most striking examples of a group that refused to assimilate to the dominant culture or the dominant faith. I bring to mind the appeal of the late Holocaust survivor and educator Max Eisen, at whose funeral I had the privilege of officiating at yesterday. His famous words, "Don't be a bystander," he would often say. "Be an upstander. Stand up." Let's not forget that. Sadly, the world we live in is filled with attacks against our most basic values, cherished beliefs, deepest loyalties. These attacks are becoming ever more pernicious, frequent, and accepted. Those who support and attend religious institutions of any stripe, never mind Jews, are often today accused of engaging in white supremacy and sexism, bigotry, and colonialism. And don't get me started on what they say about those who support and defend the state of Israel. The pressure to conform is immense, and the penalty for non-conformity is great. The masses are demanding that we worship the idols of today, and with ribbons and flags and acknowledgments, they demand that we demonstrate publicly our allegiance to them, not with influence, but with coercion. But dear friends, dead fish go with the flow. Live fish swim against the current. Let us remember where we come from and in whose spiritual footsteps we walk. The majority is not always right. Conventional wisdom is not always wise, and political correctness is not always correct. And so, always with respect, may we continue to say what we have to say, believe what we have to believe, do what we have to do, and never be afraid to do so. Shabbat Shalom.